So, in the first instance, these are issues for these private companies to sort out. At the moment, it's speculation, and because they're private companies, it is for them and their shareholders to sort out any issues that they are facing. And I read in the papers this morning about various efforts that they are doing to do exactly that. Obviously, this is a heavily regulated industry, and the government does have contingency plans. But in the first instance, these are private companies, and they need to sort out any financing issues for themselves.
I mean, that doesn't sound terribly reassuring. Does the government have any idea of, drawing up these contingencies, what exactly they could be taking on if they do enter into some sort of nationalisation, even if it is temporary?
Yeah, action has been being taken for quite a long time now to try and improve the financial resilience of these companies. So last year, for example, Ofwat increased the level of resilience that they needed to be holding, and the level of debt to equity actually fell last year. And we've taken a whole bunch of steps to make them improve their financial resilience. For example, we've said that if they lose their investment credit rating, that they won't be able to make any payments to shareholders. In March this year, Ofwat said that any dividends had to be linked to improved performance on the environment. So we have been tightening the nut, and the independent regulator Ofwat have been tightening the nut in terms of their financial stability. But I can see that from the media this morning that lots of different things are being done to ensure that this doesn't become an issue for government, and it remains something for these private companies to sort out themselves and to raise their own finance.
But it is an issue for government.
Absolutely,
and they're not going to sort it out for themselves. And you've got to look at the whole model. Apparently, there's worries about 4 other water utility companies who may be on the brink. So what it says, Neil, is this plan, this blueprint for privatising water, doesn't work.
So at the moment, this is still a hypothetical question, though. They are still, in the process of raising funds, and there is action going on at the moment. And so, obviously, the government does have contingency plans. Of course, we will step in if that is required. But at the moment, that is still an if. It is worth stressing that point. And to your point about the basic model, we've been really turning the screw on these companies to improve their environmental performance. In 2009, under the last government, they were allowed to effectively mark their own homework. They were basically just self-monitoring their own environmental things. And we, in 2013, started making them monitor it themselves. And then we have gone from, in 2010, only about 7% of these storm outflows that have been causing so much concern for my constituents were being monitored. And by the end of this year, it'll be 100%. And we now have proper plans in place to make these companies, who I think have got a bad environmental track record, really raise their game. In fact, we've got a £56 billion investment plan over the next coming years to make these problems history, to sort out these environmental problems, and to make these companies behave properly.
I have to say, I'm sorry to interrupt, just because we're limited on time. It's just, I do think you make quite a unconvincing defence of Ofwat and all of this, and to suggest that because in March this year you said to them, well, in order for you to be paying dividends, you need to be making improvements. What took them so long? Billions, millions have been paid in dividends since 2006, and they wake up in March and now we're in this crisis. How can you defend that?
Well, I did also mention that they've been taking action a long time before that, including the actions that they took deep into last year to improve financial resilience, and that had actually been making progress, and the level of financial resilience had improved, and debt to equity had improved last year as well. So it's not that they've just woken up in March. So I don't think that's quite fair. But of course, we are absolutely going to hold all these companies to account. That's what we've been doing on the environment. It's what we'll do on any financial issues. But as we stand this morning, this is still a hypothetical question, and we hope and expect that these companies will sort these issues out for themselves, because they are private companies.
Do you think it's right that consultants should be making supplementary income on strike days in the private sector?
So ultimately, the solution here is to end these strikes and to come back to the negotiating table. We've already showed with the nurses and the Agenda for Change workers in the NHS that we're prepared to come up with a sensible solution, that we will work really hard to come up with something that's fair, because we really value the work of everyone in the NHS.
But to be fair, that wasn't my question.
And we've been investing really... Yeah, no, absolutely. So your question is, do you think it's fair? It's a matter ultimately for local trusts, and they have to take the decisions, often difficult decisions, they need to keep services operating safely. But the underlying problem is the thing we need to solve, which is the strikes. And we have spoken to them, we have been talking to them, we will continue to do that, but we want them to call off these strikes, come back to negotiations, because it is a hugely damaging thing for patients. It's damaging in terms of, we are making progress in terms of cutting waiting lists. We've eliminated the longest waits for 2 years and then for 18 months, but that it will be pushed off track if they keep going on strike, and that is ultimately the cause of this. I understand why local trusts are having to pay them in order to cover for the junior doctor strikes, because of course we want a safe NHS, we want our loved ones to be looked after safely in hospital. But ultimately the solution is to solve the strikes. We've shown that we will do that with the nurses. We've shown we will come to a fair settlement. But at the moment what they're asking for, a 35% pay increase off the back of an average salary of £128,000 a year, is just not affordable for the NHS, and we need to come to a realistic solution. I hope we will do that soon.